IP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and I know what you're thinking. You're redoing the Superman Smashes the Klan video? Why? Ad revenue? Guys, I'm not monetized yet. But see, I'm glad I got 31 videos done in May, but the road to get them done was arguably a lot harder than anyone was expecting, even myself, and I wanted to do the video with a little bit more justice than that, especially since it was between 10 p.m. and 11:50 when I was groggy and couldn't properly function. So I'll once again explain why Superman Smashes the Klan is more important than ever. Like I said in the original video, which definitely I did not spell wrongly on my script, Superman Smashes the Klan is a loose adaptation of one of the most famous episodes of the Adventures of Superman radio show, Clan of the Fiery Claws, which was bi-monthly and released by DC Comics between October 2009 and February 2020 for 3 issues. It was written by award-winning writer Gene Luen Yang and drawn by Gurihiru, both of whom worked together on the Avatar Last Airbender comics. The comic has Superman having to rediscover his past while trying to figure out the connection between a recent supervillain attack and the rise of the Klan, while he's posing as an above-average superhuman to the public in place of his truth as an alien who can fly. At the same time, a Chinese-American family called the Lees are moving in from Chinatown to downtown Metropolis after their father gets a job. The focus is on their kids, Roberta and her older brother Tommy, her struggles of fitting in as they befriend Tommy and deal with a jealous classmate whose family has ties to the Ku Klux Klan. So for those of you unfamiliar, Superman Smashes the Klan is loosely adapted from the 16-part story arc Clan of the Fiery Cross from the Serial Adventures of Superman, which ran from June to July 1946. In it, Superman exposed Ku Klux Klan code words, rituals, and its bigotry, all based on intel collected by activist Stetson Kennedy before a national audience. Stetson Kennedy was an American author and human rights activist who infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan in the 1940s, exposing its secrets to the authorities and the outside world while working with the Anti-Defamation League, who helped him with his cover identity. Living a double life as a white supremacist who joined 20 hate groups such as the White Front, Confederate Underground, and American Gentle Army, and swayed people with ties to the Klan to join a Klan associated with a member of the Confederate Army before temporarily joining the Klan, and would file detailed reports on the Klan's meetings for almost 4 years, reporting their crimes to the FBT, police, journalists, and human rights organizations. Wait, didn't I supposed to say FBI? Anyway, so the writers of The Adventures of Superman allowed him to pitch and be a consultant on the show, giving them the world details. And Yang went on an interview about, the Klan didn't disappear. Though a fraction of what it was then, the ideas driving the Klan seemed to be making a resurgence. Adding that going on and what's going on in real life pushed him to visit Superman's original battle with the American bigotry, which, given the rise of neo-Nazis, anti-Semitism, and more subtle racism, he adds definitely a problem. So, we're going to explore this in different subjects. Let's start with Superman's journey. When we see Superman, it's a bit different in most interpretations. He's already active, but he's not flying. He presents himself as a strong man who doesn't fly. Everyone assumes he can leap up to 20 feet in the air and sprint alongside power lines, and it's because he's afraid of his heritage. After Superman fights a Nazi super soldier and Atom Man, he starts getting visions of himself in a mirror and later his birth parents as lizard-like humans. It starts affecting him in situations that make it seem like he's not paying attention to Lois, and kicks up when he's discovering he's got new powers he hasn't used before. And we see why. Martha and John found a phonograph that we later learned is the vessel to the Fortress of Solitude, and a super hearing allowed him to hear them concerned about his origins and try to raise him to be normal, already giving him self-doubt. Not helped that when he befriended Pete Ross, was hurt by aliens being called creepy, but the bullies who attacked him kickstarted his flight in heat vision. Thankfully, he was bailed out by a sheriff, but he loses a friend and gets attacked by them later while he's having those visions again. Thankfully, he met Lana Lang for the first time, who was kicking their shins in while he was trying to contain his crash out, and she's not the only one to help him out on his journey. When the two are out with his parents to see a circus, no Grayson levels of mental acrobatics to figure out who else is a part of it. They meet a ticket master who Clark realizes later is a strongman. But when lightning causes a fire and the animal to break loose, Clark uses his power to save the strongman and convinces him to wear a costume to use his strength, leading him to become the Superman we know at the start of the series. But Clark's character journey is about accepting the fact that he's different, but that his differences do not make him a freak or a bad person, and real authentic people out there will not judge him, which is something his birth parents try to teach him. Through listening to them, he's able to find Tommy via X-ray vision to save him from drowning in the river and figure out his arm is broken. Roberta pointing out having flight would have allowed him to save the people of the Daily Planet faster instead of hiding it behind his leaps. And yes, his fears get founded. When he goes to save people in the final confrontation, some of the adults turn on him and see him as a freak they're willing to side with the KKK member over him. But the kids don't, and neither do his friends. Roberta, Tommy, Jimmy, Chuck, Henderson, the kids at the Unity House, and especially Lois do not judge him one bit. He even takes one look at Lois and says, "She's the same as ever, utterly fearless. Deep down inside, from the moment I met her, I knew she could never be afraid of me, even after she learned the truth. That's why I fell in love with her." Ah, damn it, that was cute. And he's right. It's because of the connections and the type of person that he is. While he is the one that ultimately manages to defeat Matt, it's really thanks to Roberta finding the lead containment and giving it to him to destroy the kryptonite gun. Even when he's being lectured with the claim that you shouldn't be fighting for someone who doesn't have the same race or blood or history with you, he points out that there is something that connects them together. A hope for the future and for things to get better, and I think that's important. Superman's inception has always been about fighting for people who are struggling and being someone considered foreign or alien, but still proving that they are still a human as compassionate as the rest of us. And yes, he is technically a white guy, but as I'm going to talk about later when we get to the main villain, just because society sees you as someone superior doesn't mean you have to take advantage of that in a negative light. He uses his powers to save people, not to control them or to dominate them. And right now, in an age where it feels like people want to use power in order to subjugate, control, dominate, and eliminate, a hero like Superman just fighting for truth, justice, and human lives is what people need. So let's segue into the co-star of the story, Lan Shin, aka Roberta. So a lot of websites are locking this behind a price wall, but unfortunately, here goes. The Western Klan in California who targeted Chinese immigrants with the KKK, not even going to give them the distinction of calling them vigilantes. They're terrorists who claim that their assaults were a campaign for white workers and were often targeted for being different. And since the story is set in 1946, just a year after World War II, tensions against Asian Americans are still high, particularly against the Japanese, and moved from the nation's Chinatowns into the suburbs where they were met with hostility, threats, physical threats, or had to move in the middle of the night to avoid trouble. And Japanese Americans have it harder because they were suffering in internment camps. And in real life, right now, we have people like ICE agents taking and kidnapping people if they didn't do anything wrong, alongside other people requesting mass deportations, and some people being held up in cells that are completely out of their control. And the funny thing is that compared to the radio show, Roberta had the biggest glow up because she didn't have any lines or named. She was just mentioned in passing, but here she's basically a co-star next to Superman. And throughout the story, you definitely see what it's like to be a young teen dealing with cultural racism. And when she goes to see a film, there's an Asian person as an alien conqueror in the film, but the Genghis Khan XP and holy crap, the microaggressions his family has to go through is wild. Like, here's a list. Okay, her dad's co-worker tells her mom he got them apple pie instead of dog. Okay, pause. This has been bothering me for at least 15 years. Who on earth started the stereotype that Chinese and Asian people eat dogs in the first place? Oh wait, let me Google this. Okay, ignoring the AI options. Okay, according to Dialogue Earth, dogs were thought to have been raised as one of the 6 animals raised by people in 13th century, but they gradually stopped being used as food since cows, sheep, chickens, and pig became the main sources of meat. People took a pain to wrongly assume that all Chinese people have dog meat, despite them mostly assisting with hunting, it being the least used animal for sacrificial offerings, and it was taboo back then to do so since it was seen as disrespectful to the spirits. And the only example people have recently is from a community that's never been a part of mainstream Chinese culture, has no famous historical figures or events to call their own, and had a dog meat tradition to attract tourists for investment. Okay, so just like minstrel shows, a nonsensical stereotype that only started off because of a few people doing it that basically convinced a bunch of closed-minded bigots to spread the message that everyone of a particular race or group acts or only does that one particular action. Why am I not surprised? Oh, right, the script. Anyway, here's the rest of the microaggressions. You've got the neighbor Chuck being jealous of her brother Tommy's baseball skills and calls her brother a yellow banana, who threatens both of them after Tommy accidentally slugs him in the side. The Klan starts a fire in her family's yard, and she realizes it was Chuck who tried and failed, though Chuck didn't actually want to hurt anyone. More on that in the future. Her brother sucks up to everyone else by calling themselves wontons, while she's rightfully worried any of her so-called new friends and peers were involved or were there themselves. Then her brother gets kidnapped by the Klan. The cop she tries to go to for help goes on a tirade about how the city gave her dad a job and home they quote-unquote didn't have to earn, while she's asking for help that her brother was kidnapped by the Ku Klux Klan. Tommy gets his arm broken punching out a Klan member who kidnapped him while they're talking about rolling him in stick tar and flying the feathers to his skin. And the only reason they're targeting his family is because they've seen photos of Chinatown and assume it's just crooked, run down, has drug addicts on every corner, and doesn't want the family bringing their filth to his country. I can't wait to watch him get beat up by every single person with a consciousness, but we'll get to that later. Then she's got to deal with Alexandra trying to bond with them since her granddad said that Chinese people are sneaky, but her dad also said that they're also hardworking and brave. With Tommy bringing up Confucius after the kidnapping event with Roberta, like, dude, you have never read Confucius in your damn life. Stop acting like a poser. And when they go to the movie, she runs into her old classmates in Harriet and Vivian, who tell her that they thought that she was standoffish and that she would always blow them off. But it's because Roberta herself has never had the confidence to explain that going on the bus rides would make her sick because she suffers from car sickness. And she hears from them that they thought she was better than the rest of them because of how her father acted pretty elitist and entitled, which didn't help her self-esteem one bit. But her growth runs in tandem to what makes her a highlight. She's rightfully homesick. She's had to use Americanized names, had to go and watch all these issues affecting her and her family. She's got a friend / crush / mutual agreement in Jimmy, who helps her adjust to the Unity House, which is a community center started by a priest, a minister, and a rabbi. Of course, the Klan is going to be targeting them. Though it is nice to see a bunch of people from different religions coming together. And Tommy out. She stands up for herself, and Tommy, when Chuck threatens them, she figures out from the boots that Chuck was there at the fire. And though she's rightfully scared, a bunch of losers in white cloaks tried to kill her, thanks to Clark's kindness and Lois and Henderson promising they won't let them drive her family out. She idolizes them, desiring to have the same type of confidence in them. She calls out Tommy for playing with the stereotypes just to get the others in the Unity House to like them. During the movie, she pieces Superman may be an alien and gets him back to the Unity House to save the owners and recognizes the diversion. She follows Lois's footsteps in figuring out the clues that she left behind for them when she gets kidnapped. And when she and Jimmy go to where Henderson, Perry, and Lois were kidnapped, she's in awe of their ability to stay sane despite them being kidnapped, and also tries to help motivate Superman because she realizes both of them want to fit in better, and that she sees that he wants to feel normal and not hold back, but he's also restricting himself from flying. Though it seems like she accidentally hurt him, that was the key he needed to go to the Fortress of Solitude and to confront his own insecurities. Even after that, she decides if she can't be best friends with people from the Unity House like Joan and Alexandra, she can still be friends with them and be more welcoming. And it's because she's becoming more trustworthy in herself that she's able to find the lead vault to contain the kryptonite to help Superman out in the final battle. Heck, she's not even the only one that gets development in her family. Yep, even Lanshin and Tommy's father has a subtle character growth. It's in the background, but he's really apprehensive to the idea that the Klan are people that aren't violent, and he thinks he can reason with them when they torch his family's yard. And props to his wife and their son telling him to call the cops and actually trying to fight back. But fortunately, Henderson and his friends show up to help put out the fire, only for Mr. Lee to get mad because he thinks their involvement would get them into more trouble. But later, when Lois goes to visit the Metropolis Health Department, she sees Dr. Lee, and when she brings up the fact that all she wants to see is the good work that they've been doing, he's not sure they can call their work good, and Jennings basically kicks her out. He eventually quits his job at the health department and doesn't believe in their mission anymore, and when Lois convinces Land/Roberta to find her dad's resources after leaving the department, she finds out that her dad learned that Sergeant Wilson had contacts in Germany that found kryptonite that they could harness for energy, and when Nazi soldier Adam Man attacked Metropolis, he had the soldier transferred from the police department to extract it from their blood. He had thought that the job was meant for protecting peace, only now Superman convinced him that he wasn't a threat and refused to get involved in a place targeting someone trying to keep peace. For off-screen character development, that's not bad, and he does go out of his way to thank Inspector Henderson and his friends for coming to their aid eventually when the Klan first attacked. And I also want to speak on Henderson for a bit. Cool guy, but when the Klan uses the Unity House bombing as a two-pronged attack on the Daily Planet, they hate Henderson so much that instead of killing them with the badge, since they don't want him to die as a cop, they force him to hand it over or they'll kill Perry. Naturally, Henderson's a good person, so he passes it over. But when Superman finds Lois, him and Perry, because when they get kidnapped, Jennings easily exposes himself, and when he accidentally gets lit on fire, Henderson helps him out, but gets an ungrateful response and knocks him out when Jennings attacks him. And I do feel bad because the badge ends up damaged, and Perry points out the badge doesn't make him a police officer. He does, but for the reality of the time the story takes place in, for a person of his skin tone, your accomplishments can only get you so far in the eye of the public consciousness, otherwise people won't ever value your merits. Remember, Mr. Lee only showed him respect initially once he found out he was a cop. And we've seen on YouTube, even if you work hard or have had several successes to your name, people will always find a way to discredit you for reasons people aren't subtle at for the reasons why. Speaking of grifters, yeah, let's not sugarcoat this one. The Klan are an evil, stupid, grifting joke. Yeah. There are a bunch of fear-mongering cowards who band together in robes because they're too afraid of saying what they actually believe out in the public, because they know it's actually taboo, that in the series we see them attack innocent families, were willing to attack a teenager and put him in a situation where he was risking drowning, blowing up a community center and targeting people of different religions for the crime of having a place where kids around the city could come together, hang out and play baseball, are willing to turn on their own people if they don't agree with them 100% of the way, and we see so many of their tactics in numerous disruptive ways. And the story presents them as the same type of cowards that they are. As Roberta gives them the problem nickname, or perfectly fitting nickname, bigots in bed sheets, who also refer to the Chinese characters as stray dogs, believe that if they die, they're going to be martyrs who will get statues despite forever going down in the history books as losers. And even when they get victories like the actual cop that was a willing, loyal member and tried to hold Henderson hostage, only to get knocked out and arrested, they still lose at the end of the day. And the best part of the story is that the story presents them as a joke from both the general losers who think that being bigoted sociopaths makes them morally superior, and the actual grifters involved in using the Klan for financial gain. For example, in real life, William Simmons had a chapter of the Klan where he recruited publicity agents in Edward Young Clark and Elizabeth Tyler, who had organizers travel through southern states to play upon whatever prejudices they had felt would rile up for most people. Kind of similar to a vice president who riled up neo-Nazis and KKK members to come into his own people's home by spreading misinformation based on only isolated cases where the accused people were innocent and the other far from the location that was told, only to get parroted by the president who ended up spreading terror and misinformation under the guise of false sympathy via creating stories. By stroking the fears against patriotism and using foreigners to blame, Klan leaders were able to earn $1.5 million in initiation fee from the sales of Klan books, newspapers, robes, and other products. And by 1923, they had earned about $2 million in revenue. And when you look at the story's twist where Matt meets the Grand Imperial Mogul at their headquarters on short notice, and it's revealed to be Dr. Wilson, he actually admits in his story that every new member was willing to pay them $100 just to get initiated and even bring up more money for robes and hoods. And what do we call people who take advantage of other people by spreading misinformation and profiting off their outrage? Grifters. On YouTube, we call them media grifters, outrage merchants, and much more I'm not willing to discuss. But Wilson even admits in the final issue that believing that the whole one race, one religion, one color thing is complete nonsense and just another sign of people who want to believe that some other race is inferior so that they can feel superior. A business that grifts and commodifies hate because they're going to find true believers who they know they can manipulate into supporting them even though they themselves do not 100% believe in that mentality whatsoever, and only seek to figure out what they can gain from it. Unfortunately, you're not supposed to expose that yourself to the people you're scamming, and for who was essentially the man behind the man, Wilson gets his throat crushed as a result. Because when you push an extremist too far, there's no telling what chaos they'll try to get behind. So let's talk about the true main, or man, antagonist in the scenario. I want to save Matt's nephew Chuck for last, but when Chuck is introduced at the beginning of the story as a jerk to Lan and Tommy, and he gets kicked off the baseball team, Matt comes across like a genuine good father figure who gives him advice on how he needs self-control and to not lose his temper. The moment Chuck confirms he's not talking about white kids, Matt starts acting like the person you know who watches way too much Fox News, going into great replacement theory, logic, and complaining about minorities in the health department like Mr. Lee, the police department like Henderson, and just as sad as when Tucker Carlson talked about green M&Ms not being sexy enough being the downfall of civilization, Matt even gets mad non-white kids are joining a baseball team. Truly, what an awful threat to American society, baseball. Like, I know TV shows, especially ones for kids, have them talk about how there are monsters in all types of corners of life that look like us, but have completely disgusting views and behaviors when they're not in sight. But the switch up between these moments is exactly what some people have to go through in their lives dealing with bigots. He does get his moments of comedy, like when he claims a sword was passed down to him from another clan knight, only for Lois, Henderson, and Perry to laugh because it has a price tag of $2.79. But he's right in regards to how bigoted ideology works to Superman. You can't kill a bunch of bigots and not expect new stakes to rise. And we know that Superman is not going to even try to kill someone in the first place like that. Just make sure they're behind bars so that their influence and behavior doesn't spread to other people. But even if you agree with Riggs' mentality, do you really think it's fair of other people that have physical differences from you is an excuse to kidnap children, journalists, and police and hold them hostage? Plus, I didn't notice this until the 5th time I read the story, but after Matt kills Wilson and attacks everyone in the final battle, he says that he's been abandoned by everyone in the organization, which means he went so far that other members of the KKK that were still loyal did not want to join his crusade. And I don't blame them because he almost shot Tommy in front of everyone, who I remind you is a teenager that just so happens to be Asian. This man was willing to kill his own nephew, and granted Chuck did swing at him first, but it was because Matt took Roberta hostage after he tried to kidnap and lynch her brother. And that was after they tried to burn down their house. Remember, in the early 1900s, this was something that was going on towards several different communities, especially if you were not white Protestant or affiliated with the KKK. He even tries to become a suicide bomber, and when Superman stops it with the freeze breath, he still tries to kill him with the kryptonite knife, but Lois's voice helps wake up and fight it long enough to save both of them from crashing to the ground. And eventually, Matt gets arrested. I kind of wish there was a better wrap-up for his family, though I think it's finally time we talk about his nephew Chuck. So one of the problems I have with media grifters is that they always try to frame any story that has a white male character that's flawed or is an antagonist as the writers intentionally are bullying and trying to belittle straight white men. And as someone who fits a majority of that description, Chuck is an example of why I not only disagree, but proof of why we need to make sure that we don't have young boys following and listening into these hate groups or outrage merchants. The funny thing about the Karen stereotype is that I used to joke about how there was a pre-evolved version of Karens called Becky's. You know, well-meaning teenagers that didn't really know all that much and could eventually become Karens, but could actually bother to learn and understand things better so they don't end up having a dark digi-evolution. Again, Chuck is presented as arrogant, also spreading microaggressions, and we've talked about the ones that he did, but deep down he's just an angry kid who realizes immediately that he's going too far. Like, whether or not its nerves are intentional, he only wanted to scare the Lees, not actively hurt them. Yeah, he gets angered when Roberta rightfully calls him out for trying to attack their home, but he is willing to calm down and tell them where the Klan has their rituals to save Tommy. And when Jimmy's able to get Henderson on the scene, while Jimmy and Roberta rightfully call him out for not giving them any details before Superman showed up, Henderson doesn't treat him as a monster or anything. He calms them all down, makes the other two give him credit because Chuck took them to save him, and offers to talk to him in the morning. I talked about this in the One Piece video, but there are some people who are affiliated with the Klan not by choice. Some of them were strong-armed by their neighbors who have longer experiences in the Klan to join them, or they would risk social isolation. Hell, we know the reason he's so loyal to his uncle initially. Matt was there for him and his mom ever since, and he cuts himself off, but confirms that his father died, so of course they're financially dependent on their uncle. Remember, women couldn't own bank accounts until the 60s, so the conversation between him and his mother had them talk about the reward money, where she says, "With $1,000, we can get out of your uncle's hair and rent our own place," without knowing her brother is involved. And she does condemn the Klan, but also asks, but is it really all that bad to want to live among only your own kind? Yeah, that separation is at best and segregation is at worst. And given her brother's association with the Klan, okay, look, there's a valid argument in finding value in members of your community and your heritage, but isolating yourself from other people causes 3 major problems. 1, those who don't learn, understand, or respect the non-disruptive cultures of other people in case of emergency or tense situations will find it hard to resolve conflicts or for cultural barrier or meeting new people. 2, it reduces the opportunity for careers, events, jobs, and events requiring those with certain skills limited in variety, especially if they're restricted by race against their choice. And 3, most importantly, if my neighbors wanted to dress up as the cast of Stranger Things, I'd have to convince most of them to go to another neighborhood to find a black person instead of dressing up as blackface for Lucas for cosplay before they get mocked on YouTube, TikTok, and Reddit. So, separatism bad. Only problem story-wise is kind of want to know what the mom's going to do financially now that her breadwinner's arrested. Sure, Chuck's redeemed, but that's the only plot thread that wasn't resolved. Then again, it was 1946, nurses, midwives, cleaners. Technically, in the radio show, she was the one that convinced Chuck to make the right decision, but it's kind of good they cut that, so it would actually be him making his own decision to do the right thing instead of her having the answers. But yeah, finding out your brother's involved in a domestic terrorist organization that's been known for targeting minorities and literally just attacked everyone in front of a baseball stadium. Gotta give her props for staying calm and just convincing him to play with the others at the end, but just feels a little bit too open-ended for me. But I don't hate it. But let's conclude. Why is Superman Smashes the Klan important to today? So what can we take away from Superman Smashes the Klan, especially given the reactions to the new Superman movie? Well, based on how the anti-woke grifter crowd has been reacting, obviously racism, bigotry, and hate are what grifters and opportunists use to gain an audience, but also profit off of people's more gullible and susceptible natures. And there's a big danger to that mentality, especially given how that type of behavior tends to spread, and then you end up with a ton of lesser minor people trying to follow in their footsteps. Even though half of them may or may not believe what they're saying. Because in the long run, it's a bad idea to exploit fanatics because they are irrational and they will turn on you when they realize you don't believe what you preach. I know it sounds like I'm taking that directly from TV tropes, but I remember a certain content creator making a product that has all the tropes that they despise, as well as a certain media company that also had certain traits for their own critics and fans hated and lambasted them for using, only to double down and make something objectively worse. And yes, actual racists generally believe what they're doing is a good thing and don't have any hate in their hearts. And yes, you are going to run into people that will judge you for who you are depending on your background and how different you are compared to them. But as long as you don't stoop down to their level and show people the type of person that you are, which is hopefully good, you aren't going to end up like them. But let's talk about the ending. In the wrap-up, Roberta goes to the Daily Planet, talking to Clark about how he missed everything, but wants to return the pen that Lois gave her earlier, since it had the description or inscription LL, which she thought stood for Lois Lane. But Lois did her research and found out her original Chinese name, Lan Xin, existed, so Roberta officially decides to go by her official name, takes the cub reporter role for the Daily Planet that Lois hinted at earlier, and joins Lois, Jimmy, and Superman in search of the next scoop. And I think when you look at Clark, Lan, and Chuck's story, there's three main takeaways. For Clark, just because we don't have our Superman to fly around and help us in situations like he can, doesn't mean we can't try to be the very best examples we can be, especially when we have ways of helping those less fortunate than us, even through small means. For Chuck, if your heart's in the right place, open up your perspective instead of staying closed-minded, be honest, and you will find people that will be there for you, and making mistakes does not make you a bad person. There are people out there that are willing to help see you grow and change. And finally, for Lan, you define who you are, and even if you have different ways to express it, there are people that you will find out there that will listen to you. And if the world is designed to discriminate against you, be yourself and show them how humane you are. The reason why this video is taking so long is because I literally had to draft it over a second time, but give it a good read, and I think you guys will like it. But that's all for me this time. Thanks for watching. BIP for Our Interest Productions, signing off.